Alright, see ya. Oh, okay, dude, you have got to stop putting out dog food before I come here. It has the most disgusting smell. It's human-grade dog food. I don't know what you're talking about. Eat it. Okay, but, don't try to make excuses. You said it was human-grade, so you better get down here and eat it! Okay, I guess. How can I make him change his ways? He's nothing but a con artist who makes business after business exploiting people until they eventually self-implode. It's unhealthy for him, it's dangerous for others, and it's leading to this erratic behavior. Who makes other people eat dog food? I need guidance, but... Wait a minute. Oh yeah, Breath of the Wild. I remember this one. Haven't played this one in years, but oh my god, yes. Yes, if there's any game that can give me clarity in my life, it's one that's done so for me for so many years. I needed this one back in my life. Let me bring you all back to 2017. It was May, and I was visiting a friend of mine. While I was with him, he showed me 2 games that he'd recently purchased on 2 different consoles. One was Horizon Zero Dawn on PlayStation 4, and the other was The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild on the Nintendo Switch. Now, I had a PS4, but I very rarely played it. It wasn't really until 2019 that I got back into PlayStation, so at this point, I was a big fan of Nintendo. This meant that when I saw the new Zelda game being played on the crazy new system that could be portable and a home console, I really wanted it. So a few months later, in August, I finally caved and bought a Switch with one game, Zelda. I was officially convinced to get one by the trailers for Super Mario Odyssey, but knowing I would get to finally try Breath of the Wild motivated me to an insane degree as well. I had been a fan of Zelda for a while. I always loved A Link to the Past, Oracle of Ages and Seasons, for some reason Spirit Tracks, Ocarina of Time, and most recently A Link Between Worlds on my beloved 3DS. The fantastical worlds of these games got me into something related to medieval fantasy, which nothing else has achieved, and the gameplay was just awesome. I loved the music, I loved the characters, I loved the dungeons. These were the kinds of games to ignite your imagination and keep you playing for week after week, getting sucked into something brand new and exciting with every entry. Whether it was a primitive little game released in the 90s for the love child between a cinder block and a calculator that was the Game Boy, or a massive N64 game that revolutionized the entire medium, I was a big fan. So just imagine my sheer awe when I played Breath of the Wild and the game essentially said, just go and explore. No hand-holding, no cumbersome tutorials, no slow start. Nothing to keep you waiting, just a massive world for you to go explore at your own pace. I was blown away. I fell in love with Breath of the Wild from the moment I left the Great Plateau and could go anywhere, do anything, and find my own path. And I kept playing for not just weeks, but years. It took me until fall of 2020 to finally get all the shrines, and until right before moving to the UK to get all the side quests done. I didn't get 100% because I'm not hunting the Korok seeds down, but yeah, I played this game periodically for year after year and just kept exploring and discovering new stuff all the time. But now that the game is nearly 6 years old? Jesus Christ, this game is already too old for Prince Andrew. Now that the game has been out for many years and its sequel is coming soon, now that I've played tons of the best open world games of all time, and now that I've experienced amazing stories and combat systems from so many games, let's see if Breath of the Wild still holds up, or if it only works so well for someone who hasn't played that many games in the genre. Oh, hey, you just caught me wearing my nostalgia glasses. And let me tell you something. These things don't work. They're terrible. I feel so ripped off. Wait a minute. Who made these? For the love of God. Walter! Beginning with the visuals, Breath of the Wild is certainly a looker, but not in the way you might expect. I typically love it when games combine impressive, realistic visuals with fantastical elements to make you truly feel like you're in a different world and to immerse you properly. But this game doesn't really do that, rather opting for a beautiful, unique, cel-shaded style that looks great. This is the kind of game that I don't think can age poorly because it's not trying to look like real life on limited hardware, but instead tries something totally different, which I can really respect. There are tons of creative character designs that will stick in your head. All of the unique species of enemies and friends alike are far from forgettable, especially the main characters. Link has a very cool new design, and in general, it's never unpleasant to look at the nature of this game. While you're traveling through the world, you'll see some beautiful sights such as sunsets, foggy forests, frigid mountains, and looming, intimidating volcanoes. Every part of the world feels so alive, and that can partially be attributed to the art style. However, the game does experience some pretty bad performance issues in certain areas. While I don't expect the Switch to suddenly turn into a supercomputer, and it's nice that the game rarely glitched on either of my playthroughs, it's kind of embarrassing when the frame rate dips so hard that the game feels like a slideshow. I didn't experience this issue too much, but when I was in hectic fights or in the Korok Forest, things got pretty bad, and sometimes it can be a bit disorienting during combat encounters, which is a problem. But again, it's not like it ruins the game, and Breath of the Wild still looks fantastic and one of a kind. Man, I guess you don't even need glasses to see how beautiful this game is. The art style is so vibrant and unique. I love it.
Hey,
Wait a minute. Whoa. Who the hell are you?
I'm a bokoblin, and you'll never defeat me. You may have slaughtered many of my brethren in your little silly game, but you can't beat any of us in real life. I am here to avenge my digital counterparts.
Oh, hell nah. Alright, let's do this. Alright, listen, idiot. I have a sword. I literally have a sword, so, I don't know what you think is gonna happen here, but you're probably going to die if you try to fight me.
Oh yeah? You really believe that? Then why don't you try it?
Gladly. God damn it.
See? I told you. You'll never defeat me.
There must be a way to defeat him. Oh, wait a minute. You see, you dumb goblin, I've played enough Breath of the Wild to know that your real weakness ain't swords, it's magnets.
No! No!
Sorry, buddy, but I have to do this. Yeah. Don't ever sneak into my house again. That goes for all of you. I will kill you. Brutally. With magnets. And there's nothing you can do about it. Because I am the Magnet
king.
Breath of the Wild's combat system is similar to its art style in that it may not be the most traditional for gaming nowadays, but both are absolutely exceptional. In this game, you'll have to cycle through a lot of different strategies in order to win. You can't just use weapons in a straightforward way all the time, and this is due to the way Breath of the Wild uses fundamental mechanics to continuously build onto the number of options you have when fighting enemies. I find it infinitely exciting to explore the many different mechanics at your disposal here, perhaps more than in any other game. While this isn't the best combat system of all time, I think God of War, Ragnarok, and Horizon Forbidden West beat it in that regard, it provides more freedom in how you actually engage with the enemies than any other game I've played. Try approaching combat in this game the same way you would in any other. I dare you. It just won't work, no matter what. The fact of the matter is that due to an incredibly divisive mechanic, using swords, spears, and axes exclusively isn't a good strategy whatsoever. The weapon durability mechanic is reviled by many, but in my opinion it's one of the smartest things this game does in terms of combat. Many may believe that it's frustrating to have weapons break so easily and so quickly after using them, even having the Master Sword need to recharge after it's used too much, claiming that it removes the satisfaction of unlocking such powerful gear. But they're wrong, and here's why. It may not be for everyone, but the fact that there's this infinite risk of the tools you worked so hard to obtain snapping into a million little pieces, or this weird blue stuff which completely breaks the law of conservation of mass, creates an everlasting incentive to save these weapons of mass destruction for when you truly need them, such as during tough boss fights. Different types of arrows with so many different effects, different weapons that not only work differently on the enemies but also get affected by the weather conditions, meaning that you have to be mindful of what you have equipped while in a new area, and armor sets that protect you from the harsh temperatures and conditions of different regions. There is a complexity woven into every crevice of Breath of the Wild's game design to make you constantly take notice of what you're doing and how you're interacting with the world around you, which makes it feel real. It may not be the only game where elemental matchups are worth taking into consideration while fighting enemies, but it's the game where the environmental reverberation of using those elements are direct and unrelenting, creating this oppressive atmosphere that works very well for some of the tougher parts of the game. Though the world is littered with some occasionally repetitive boss fights, they're very rarely dull, and the bosses as part of the main story are fantastic. Even if there's one major difficulty spike when you fight Thunderblight Ganon, and the rest can feel a bit too easy, the combat never ceases to give you a satisfying sense of progression. It's incredibly gratifying when you finally take down a Guardian by perfectly parrying its lasers multiple times. It's awesome to grip tightly onto your new, powerful weapon and plan to use it for that one boss that's been giving you trouble, and the feeling of exploring the world and simply taking on different foes creates a freedom that is nothing short of wildly, wildly breathtaking. When I popped in the game and explored the opening area for the first time in over half a decade, I immediately realized why I love this game so much. It's that ability you have to achieve anything by using stasis, magnesis, the remote bomb, cryonis, your arrows, your weapons, and most of all, the environment around you that makes the combat in Breath of the Wild truly perfect. You can continue to use these 4 abilities unlocked in the tutorial for dozens and dozens of hours in infinitely surprising ways, which makes the combat infinitely replayable and fun.
Well, hold on there, partner. Because guess what? I've got an announcement. Yes, this is totally shoehorned into the video, but let me just tell you one quick thing. This video is actually the season finale of the WalterTheGermanyBall Saga. Now, what the hell is a WalterTheGermanyBall Saga, you might be wondering? Well, it is actually what I am now going to be using to refer to all of the biggest videos on my channel. I plan to announce this during my 4-year channel anniversary update, but I actually decided to reveal it during the season finale because it just made sense. So season 1 starts with the Among Us potion part 2 and goes up to this video, meaning it started in July. And I didn't know it was going to be a series, but now it is. They all tell a story. It just makes sense.
So I really hope you enjoyed it, and if you did, make sure to stop by the IMDb page that'll be linked below and give us a positive review or a negative one, whatever you thought. Give us your thoughts. It really, really helps. And yeah, I hope it'll inspire us to continue to create these videos for you guys if you enjoy them. So yeah, thank you, and back to the video. But what makes Breath of the Wild such an important game for the history of the industry and for the art of video games as a whole is not the challenging, freedom-filled combat, not the beautiful art style, not the unique character designs, and not the elegant, subtle music, but rather the open world. This is it, everyone. This is where everything I've been saying about open worlds and gaming comes together. I hope you've been taking notes, because Breath of the Wild is the final step in creating a brilliant, ingenious world that will be remembered for generations. You don't create some massive fantasy realm and fill it with emotionless, copy-paste missions. You craft a passionate, beautiful, grounded set of areas that any player can get sucked into on more than the surface levels of grandeur, but on a real, deep beauty that you've placed deep within your game. As you step out of the Shrine of Resurrection in the opening minutes and gaze upon the Great Plateau, it's impossible not to feel the rush of liberty in the wind, not to feel something come over you, that excitement, that want to adventure and experience something new, something truly amazing, is deeply sewn into the heart of this game, and it comes across perfectly very early on. But that's just the beginning. You're just in the tutorial. After about an hour, tops, you'll have seen some great new stuff and had to venture your way through a snowy landscape, fight groups of enemies, and scale some enormous heights. But all of these can be accomplished in an amazing, huge variety of ways. There is no one correct answer when faced with a challenge in Breath of the Wild, and that's what makes it so special. The brilliant freedom and discovery that doesn't just exist to impress, but to further heighten the impact of what lies beneath. When I cooked a dish to make myself resistant to cold in order to reach one of the 4 shrines in the tutorial, that felt amazing. That felt more satisfying than anything in most open world games, even in my absolute favorites, and that's because this game lets the player become a true explorer, not just part of a more limiting narrative. And to be perfectly clear, there's nothing wrong with that. I really like games like Ghost of Tsushima, even though the open world feels very linear, and some of my all-time favorite games are the Horizon duology and Marvel's Spider-Man, which don't even come close to the level of freedom expressed by Breath of the Wild. But there are those open world games, and then there's this game. It's in a class of its own. This is made especially clear once you finally get the paraglider and the game essentially says, okay, enough playing around, let's go. Hell yeah, that's what I call a video game, damn it. When your goal is simply to unite the 4 corners of this massive world and everyone within it for a common goal, everything falls perfectly into place. Now it feels like everything you're doing is adding to your journey. Other than some occasional distractions, the content in Breath of the Wild serves a not insignificant purpose in advancing one solitary storyline, your quest to defeat Ganon. When King Rome's ghost tells you to quell the calamity, that's the only advice you need. Everything else you do is something optional. No joke, you can literally go straight to the final boss after that. You'll get absolutely destroyed, but it's not off the table. This means that the entire main story of the game feels even more like a true adventure that you've discovered and chosen to go on, because the game never forces you to experience any of it. The game feels, as a result, like such a unified experience, and it never feels boring or forced to go exploring, since it's all at your own pace and at your own volition. And though the game's traversal isn't the greatest, as I'll get into soon, that isn't an issue, because there's something amazing and important to discover around every corner. Whether that be a regular shrine that you just have to scout out, a shrine hidden away that you'll have to find by going through a huge maze, a whole damn island that feels like what another game would try and use as paid DLC, where you lose everything and have to go through an island to solve puzzles and unlock a shrine, or a side mission, you're never left without a new surprise.
I love how rich and alive the world of Horizon, for example, feels with the tribes, geography, visuals, varied side content, and incredibly fun traversal, all of which are things it beats out Breath of the Wild for, but it doesn't offer this level of discovery. No other game does. It's not even close. Just for an example, take Skyrim. This game has a very big world with lots to do, which is cool, but as I played it for just a few hours, I realized that all of the content is copy and pasted, without much variety at all, and as this guy's video title perfectly summarizes, it leaves the world feeling miles wide and only an inch deep. Breath of the Wild is miles wide and about a mile deep because even though some shrines get repetitive and not everything is perfect, the feeling of coming across a shrine never loses its punch because when it's something different, it's truly something phenomenal. And that's not even getting into the massive number of other secrets. There's a coliseum where you can fight against tons of the toughest enemies, little Korok puzzles to solve, dragons that randomly float around because that's just no big deal, and a mythical creature living on a beautiful, dreamlike mountaintop that you can capture and ride like a horse. Some things are tucked so far away that I never even knew about them until I looked them up on the internet. I thought I had seen everything this game had to offer, but that was never the truth. It's nothing short of awesome. It takes the open-ended nature that the first Zelda game attempted to achieve and knocks it into the goddamn moon. Shigeru Miyamoto actually based the original Zelda off of his experiences as a child exploring caves in the Japanese countryside, as is now commonly known. But while the original NES game was an admirable, though ultimately crude attempt to emulate this, and Ocarina of Time was a big, though flawed step in the right direction, Breath of the Wild is the full, perfect realization of this idea. The open world is pretty much as good and as flawless as you can get. But there are still some issues. Firstly, the Korok seeds. They are optional and getting some of them is fun, but whoever decided that the percentage counter should count these as 72% of all completion in the game and that the side quest shouldn't count whatsoever is evil. What's even the point of getting all 120 shrines in every side quest, beating the main story and all that just to remain below 40%? I get it doesn't matter that much, but essentially the game is placing the 900 little golden turds above creative and usually fun side quests. That's stupid. But the real issue of mine lies with traversal. It's very cool how important the stamina wheel is and how managing it adds some strategy and necessary limitations to gliding, but I think the way it's used for climbing and swimming causes more trouble than it's worth. I understand including it to some degree, and the ability to use Cryonos and Rivali's Gale to bypass some steep cliffs and deep rivers adds to that satisfying sense of progression, but it's also seriously boring when you can't do that. Simply holding up to move incredibly slowly up a mountain or across a body of water is not fun. It might be challenging at some points to use your stamina wisely, but then there's the Death Stranding level strategy of just having you hold the analog stick to move around while you look at your phone and wait for it to be over. If these mechanics essentially equate to just waiting while holding up, what's the point? It's kind of like the climbing in Uncharted, but if you could suddenly fall off or drown and have to start all over again. Thankfully, these geographical challenges usually serve as a necessary way of making the world feel more difficult and harsh to navigate, without being unfair. Except for when it rains. Finally, we end off with the story of Breath of the Wild. Can this game break the Nintendo curse and actually tell a good story for once? Well, I just angered a lot of people by saying that for some reason, but let's find out. Nope. This game doesn't have a very compelling story in my eyes, and that's just obvious. There are occasional relationships that work like Sidon and Link because, come on. And I also like the cocky nature of Rivali and Urbosa's stoic power, but really there's not that much to enjoy under the surface here. It's kind of the exact opposite of the gameplay. This isn't a totally story-driven game, and there aren't that many cutscenes, so I won't hate on the game for it too much, since it's very clear that the focus was on gameplay and atmosphere, but I think it's not that hard to do a bit better than this story. If you're wondering why I feel underwhelmed, let me just give you an example. In my opinion, the best part of the story is in Zora's Domain, where you rediscover your memory of Mipha and the relationship between her and Link. It's interesting because of the way a certain character reacts to what's going on around him with hatred, but gradually learns to accept something he's not exactly used to. It's impactful to see this character learn and grow, even if it is pretty simple. But then the rest of the game doesn't have anything like that. The Goron storyline shows pretty much no character evolution, and with Revali, he pretty much just gains one more ounce of respect for Link. These could have done with something, anything more to keep it engaging, but where they really missed the mark is when you visit the Gerudo in the desert. There's a plot line where you have to cross-dress in order to get into their city because they don't accept men in the city. Yeah, I know, it's pretty interesting, but the game never capitalizes on this interesting attribute of the Gerudo tribe to flesh anything out. If there was a storyline in which you gradually gain the town's trust as you help them out with favors, then revealing who you truly are and making them realize the archaic nature of their thinking, that would be great. Creating a method of learning and growing for all of these people makes your interactions with them feel so much more tangible and worth witnessing, but instead the story just feels like the most boilerplate template with interesting characters and cool personalities for each of them, but nothing that properly puts them to use. And the voice acting is just really iffy. It's not horrible, but you'd expect for a game with way fewer cutscenes than other games in the genre, and no voice acting for anything outside of that, to have more high quality acting. And this game can't even manage that. When you look at certain other massive games where the acting for even minor characters in 10-minute long side quests is fantastic, and every line is read aloud, this looks weak in comparison. But can I hate on this game for that? No, I can't. The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild is so much more than the sum of its parts. It's an unforgettable experience that has left an indescribably massive impact on me over all of these years, one that still won't let up. It's the kind of game that will be recounted for generations, just as nearly every Zelda before it. A timeless, beautiful, unique art style, an understated but highly effective soundtrack, dynamic and infinitely enjoyable combat, and most importantly, a world that never lets up. A world that always provides the integral, beautiful rush of exploration, discovery, and adventure that gaming alone can display. For so many years, I've wondered how I can even review such a towering achievement as this game. But in that time, I've been blown away by others, and yet I still think back to Breath of the Wild. No matter how many times I played an incredible game, reviewed it, and pour my heart out about why it's so masterful, I had this game in the back of my mind, because it simply won't leave who I am. This is the kind of artistic achievement that reaches into your soul and rips it out with every single new, crazy thing it shows you, every single beautiful new thing to discover, every amazing, mind-blowing, and genius mechanic delicately placed within its massive scale. A never-ending game with somehow everything in every single place, all working together to create nothing short of one of the greatest games of all time that pushes its series, its genre, gaming, and media as a whole forward together in one breathtaking, generation-defining display. This game still kicks ass 5 years later.
Well, you guys, I guess there you have it. Breath of the Wild did end up having all the secrets and all the guidance I could have hoped for because, it's so good that... No. You see, the problem is it's revealed so many beautiful things to me, but now I know there's nothing out there that could ever be as good.
So it seems that I've seen everything good that there is to see in the world, and, well, now I guess all that's left is negativity. But I'm sick of taking it. I want to give some back. Maybe I want to be the one in the wrong for once. You know, I hear that Walter, I hear he loves those Uncharted games. So, what do you say we go pay him a visit?
Hey there, Walter.